Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome into today's show. I'm so excited that you are here. So much fun. I hope that you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, comment below your favorite part. Today's show is brought to you by Ave Explores, the great podcast from Ave Maria Press. Enjoy. Howdy and welcome into Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll, and I am joined by the beautiful, the lovely, no, not one of my female co-hosts, Jonathan Bearded Blevins. How are you, John?
I'm doing lovely. It's 63 degrees here in Illinois today. It was 25 last week, so can't complain.
It's okay. So it's obviously like both of those colds are colder than like Arlo was and Arlo is now here in Texas, but it was pretty cold a few days ago here, like cold for Texas, like 40s or something. Yesterday, John,
Yep.
I had to turn my air conditioning on. it was hot. It got up to like 80 degrees. And I'm like, I thought about like taking my because we have like central air in the house, but then also like in essentially our living room is like a converted garage. So that it has air conditioning in it, but it's not great. So we have a window unit in there. Just for extra AC for when we're hanging out in there watching TV or whatever. And I thought about taking it out for the winter. And boy, I'm glad I didn't, because it was really hot in there yesterday.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't either. Way to rub it in.
Yeah. So I'm glad we started off the show with everyone's favorite kind of small talk. Talking about the weather like we just met or something. But I'm glad that you're here. And last week, for those that listened, I started off the show speaking Spanish. I did the intro to this show in very broken Spanish, and that was supposed to lead to something. And Father Anthony's response to me speaking Spanish was so different than any response I thought he was going to give that I forgot the entire reason that I brought it up.
Amazing.
So now you have to deal with my Spanish. Are you ready?
Oh, come on. All right, I'm ready.
It's different Spanish than last week, but it's the whole reason I brought it up. So, John, did you know? I don't think many people know this.
En español, por favor.
Okay, see, I don't know how to say what I'm about to say in Spanish, but we'll get to the Spanish part. So, did you know that I was a music director at a parish? Just first of all, did you know that was a job that I held at some point?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Okay, and it's so funny to me, like people who know me from the internet only know me for the talkie. Like I talk on the radio and they know that I like travel and speak. Everyone here locally has no idea that I have a radio show and a podcast that people listen to. But they only know me for leading worship and singing at mass and adoration and that sort of thing. Right. So it's just really funny. And I'm like, my two worlds have not collided. Like there are people who know me as a singer and who know me as a speaker.
So wait, are you slightly above average at playing music and singing?
I get paid to travel the country. Well, when the country's not closed, I get paid to travel the country and sing for Jesus in front of people, and they can also sing if they would like to.
Do you sing songs not about Jesus?
In my car.
But not on like guitar and stuff?
I mean, I can, but I don't get paid for that. So I don't, not as much.
Want to not get paid for that still, but do a halftime show for Super Squares?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, cool. So here's the next part. Not only was I a music director at a parish, John, I was a music director at a parish that was primarily Spanish speaking. What do you think about that?
That does surprise me.
It surprised me as well. But here's the thing. Like, this is the parish I was hired at, but I used where I started like ministry, like leading worship and talking and like caring about, telling people about Jesus was at a parish where the only white people, and there's a parish of like 3,000 people, me, 3 priests, and 1 married couple were the only white people in the whole church. It was me and an entire Hispanic congregation. And so like that was like kind of my first taste of like bilingual masses and that sort of thing. Well, I go to this parish where I get hired as the music director, and like it's easy for so essentially like for like the Saturday night mass was in English, and it was kind of like I don't mean traditional like rad trad, it's like singing in Latin, but like the songs that most of us grew up with, all the songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, Amazing Grace, that sort of thing, right? So we would do like 2 like what I think people would say like most normal masses, and then there would be a Spanish mass, and then there'd be like a youth mass on Sunday night, and that was more like the praise and worship kind of stuff, right? So all in one weekend, I did kind of like the typical Catholic mass. I did a Spanish mass and then like a contemporary music mass. And it was a lot of fun for me to like do all three of those. But what I didn't see going as well was how well Spanish mass went. It was my favorite mass to play for every weekend. And so what I do whenever I sing for mass is obviously the psalms are written by God and his friends, right? Like the words, but like the setting and like the musicality of it, I would write a new psalm every weekend. I'd write the chorus and then I'd just kind of like freelance the the melody for the verses. It was a lot of fun, and I just kind of built that up over the years. Well, and what I did at the Spanish masses is like whatever tune I sang for in English, I would teach it to someone who actually spoke Spanish, and they would lead it. So it was really cool to hear a song that I wrote sung in Spanish 2 days after I wrote it in English.
Yeah.
So we got to one, and this one has always stuck with me. And this is not a tune that I wrote, but I had to like make it make sense in Spanish. So I know that you've heard this song. The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. Like, and then I raise my hands and you have to sing along, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we did that one in Spanish. And you know, sometimes Spanish and English, like the translations aren't like word for word. They're not exactly the same.
Right.
Right. So I heard this one, and it might be my favorite tailored translation of anything in Spanish ever. It's El Señor es mi pastor, nada me falta. So what we know it is in English is the Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want. But I heard El Señor es mi pastor. So it's like the guy is my pastor. So you know, in Spanish, El Señor is God, which is funny because you say Señor and it's a guy, but it's also God. It gets very confusing. But that's not the important part here. The important part here is that what translates from there's nothing I shall want, it says nada me falta. So nada to me means nothing. Falta sounds like fault. So what I always heard was the Lord is my shepherd, therefore nothing is my fault.
Oh, I like that better.
Right? Isn't that nice?
That's a lot better. Yeah. I'm going to start thinking of that every time I hear that psalm now. Which in most parishes is almost every week. So
right, exactly. Because it's one of the optional psalms that you can do. So if you don't want to practice with your choir, you could just sing the same one over and over again. So the Lord is my shepherd, nothing is my fault is a lot easier for me to believe than there's nothing that I shall want, because I want a lot of things, but I think nothing is my fault. So I think something's wrong with me, and I realized it through Spanish translation.
So maybe you can do what I do, Taylor, and that is to convince yourself that everything you want, you need. Yeah? Follow me?
Give me an example.
Okay. The Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. I don't want a new TV. I need a new TV. You see? And then I'm not wanting.
I see. That's very creative. That's very creative.
Thank you.
Like that a lot. I just got a new TV, and I think I used that exact logic without realizing it. So here's my thing. There's a thing on the old Twitter that you and I are both a part of, lovingly and begrudgingly. And there's this thing that constantly pops up saying that God is in control. God is in control. God is in control. Over and over and over. And while it's true, and I believe that, and I think God is in control. It's always, a lot of times it's used in response to something to kind of like abdicate, I have no part in this, right? Which is essentially what I did in my Spanish translation. If God is my shepherd and he's in charge, then I take no ownership of any of my mistakes or anything that I do wrong, because God's in control. God is the shepherd. I don't have to do anything right. If I mess up, it's his fault. So I think, like, whether it's actually stated or just kind of like a subconscious thing, I think we all do that. So I want to hear from you, because I'm a little lost, I think. What does it actually mean that God is in control? First of all, what does it mean that God is in control?
See, this is deep, man. I actually am on record on Twitter, a year ago or two, whenever that thing came out, saying that I hated that meme because people just kept using it over and over and over, and it was annoying. So I've never loved when people tweet that, but I'm much more open to it now. I think when people say that God is in control, it just means that there are things that are out of our hands that we can do nothing about. And so at the end of the day, we need to take a deep breath and rest in the fact that we're sons and daughters of God and love those close to us and love our friends and maybe shut down the internet and so many things happening in the world because there's only so much we can do.
Yeah, I like that. I think you bring up like one side of it that I'm fine with, and I think where it applies the most, like it is true. God being in control is true no matter what. But where it truly fits is in the situations where things are completely out of our control, right? So like as we're recording this, we still don't have a president. Like we're recording this a little early. That we don't have the results. Everybody's kind of freaking out this week. Like what's going on? And it's like in moments of where like literally I have no control over who's the president. I made my vote, and I'll just say I voted for somebody that was not the main two, so my vote didn't do much. But like these two people, we have no control over what happens now, right? So like saying God is in control in this moment is actually pretty comforting. It's like no matter who wins and who gets elected, God is still God, and
we are not.
And we are not, right? I've seen a lot of fun memes where it's like, a friend of mine, Brandon Morrell, Be the Symbol, who actually makes all the music for this show. He was like, if Biden wins, I'm going to go work out. If Trump wins, I'm going to go work out. Like, I think a lot of times we give a lot of this stuff a lot more credence in our lives than it actually means. We had Trump as president, we had Barack as president, we had Bush as president. And like, how much did my personal life change? Not a lot. I don't think at all. Maybe yours didn't. Maybe other people's did. And I know people care a lot more about politics than I do. So I take it with a grain of salt, right? But how much did our lives actually change? Not much. It's all out of our control. God is in control. But here's the other side of it, Jonathan.
Okay.
When it's something in my control and I say God is in control, then it could get problematic. And it starts sounding like me speaking Spanish. Nothing is my fault. Where it's like, God is in control, and yet I surround myself with drugs. Or
right.
God is in control, but I drink too much alcohol. I put myself in any position of any sin, right? Where it's like, well, God is in control, but you have a little bit of control over this situation as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. God is in control as I eat this third double quarter pounder with cheese and ketchup only.
Right, exactly. So like in the things where we don't have control as individuals, I think it's really helpful to like say that, kind of have it as a mantra, as a prayer, right? God is in control. I am not, like the whole Lord grant me serenity, to accept the things I can't change, the wisdom to whatever.
Come on, pay attention to your grandmother's paintings.
Right. Accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wine when I can't figure out which one it is. That's the quote, right?
Yeah.
That was the one at my grandma's
house.
Yeah.
And there's only one pair of footprints because then I was tipsy hopping.
No, there was one set of footprints because that's when the sand people took over.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
No, the tree people.
The sand people from Star Wars. Get your memes right, Jonathan.
Do you remember our tree people convo? Okay, keep going.
I do remember our tree people convo. That was fun. So just like personally, like I just feel like there's like I think I live way too much by my fake Spanish understanding of God being my shepherd. Like nothing's my fault. And it's like I continually put myself into situations where it's like, what do they call it? It's like, I'm not sinning, but near occasion of sin. That's what it is, right? It's like, I keep putting myself in near occasion of sins, and I'm like, God, help me not to sin here as in the valley of the shadow of death, right? He's like, right. Bud, I led you out here. I'm your shepherd. I'm going to bring you over here.
Yeah, I hear that.
Any other thoughts?
No, none.
No, none. Good. This is fantastic. Thanks for your contributions. There's something that I talked about a few years ago, and I think it helps me kind of make both of these things true, where it's like, just personally, like how practically it works in my life, where the Lord is my shepherd, he's in charge, he's in control, but I have some ownership over this as well. And I think it comes with a little bit of like presuming God's mercy. So let's get into it. So uh shepherding, like the story of like the lost sheep, right?
Yeah.
So like, it got real popular the last couple of years with God leaving the 99 to go get the one, and like it's a vision that we all have of faith. Like obviously it comes from the scriptures, like it's a good image, and it's like, God comes in his mercy to find those who are lost. That's very true. I learned this thing about that story and about shepherding and how it works, because I'm not a shepherd, but I learned this from some talk I heard a few years ago, and it's always stuck with me, that if there was a shepherd and he had a sheep that continually walked off and did its own thing. So like there's the herd and there's this other sheep just continually doing its own thing and keeps wandering off. The shepherd's like, I left the 99 to get you, and then I left the 99 to get you again, and then I left the 99 to get you again. He's like, at some point, he's like, this is getting tiring. I would like to stay with the rest of my flock,
Yeah.
So what they would do with the sheep that kept wandering off, like, you've seen like the picture of Jesus, like art of Jesus with a sheep over his shoulders.
Yep.
You seen that? Okay. It wasn't just for fun. It wasn't a photo op. Like that's not why Jesus was doing that. But what shepherds would do is, if sheep were wandering off like that, they would literally take the sheep's legs and they would break the sheep's legs so that the sheep couldn't walk away anymore. Right? It's pretty intense for a Jesus image, right?
Yeah. I'm listening.
So here's what would happen is if the sheep kept wandering off, the shepherd would break the legs. And what the shepherd would do, it wasn't like a death sentence. It wasn't necessarily a punishment, although I'm sure the sheep saw it as that for a while. But what the shepherd would do is, that's why the sheep was on his shoulders. It's because the legs were broken. That sheep literally couldn't walk. So wherever that sheep was going, or wherever the sheep had no control over anything, the sheep was going to go wherever the shepherd went. And the shepherd would walk and this sort of thing. And whenever they would stop, where was that sheep? Right next to the shepherd. The shepherd was constantly taking care of it, constantly helping it and feeding it and helping it to get water, and literally primary care of this sheep for the whole time until it healed.
Okay.
Whenever those sheep would heal, whenever that sheep would heal, it wouldn't wander off anymore. And it was often the closest one to the shepherd, because the shepherd, there's the one real aspect of like, I don't want to get my legs broken again, right? But the secondary aspect of it was the shepherd spent so much one-on-one time and care for that sheep that sheep now felt extremely close to the shepherd, right? So how does this work for us? It's like we're the sheep, right? And we wander off, and God is going to come and get us if we're leaving the flock. A lot of us have that multiple times in our faith story. A lot of us have, maybe one big one where we were doing our own thing and then God came back and saved us. But I know that there have been times in my life where I'm in the flock and I'm in the church and I'm following Jesus stuff, and then I wander off, and then I wander off, and then I wander off, and then I wander off. And like God, like truly cares about us as a shepherd, and he's not going to let us do whatever we want, right? And he's like, hey, if you're not listening, like there might be a struggle, like there might be some struggle, but if we respond to that struggle and that suffering, that he's going to be like, look, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to keep you with me. I'm going to take care of you. And then like the hope is that we're the sheep that's super close to the shepherd. We don't wander off anymore. What do you think about all that, Jonathan?
Okay. So it's a beautiful image, and it's a beautiful image of Christ in us, God in us. But it's pretty ignorant of the shepherd. Like, just put a leash on the sheep, dude. You break its legs, carry it, and then do all the extra work for taking care of it, when all you had to do was like tie some leaves together and some twigs and make a quick leash.
Did you just say tie some leaves together?
Yeah, leaves, twigs, tree bark. I mean, you could fashion a leash.
Boy, I'm glad you're good at other stuff, because you'd make a
Jesus
terrible
fashioned
shepherd.
a whip.
Yes, not out of leaves.
Whatever it was out of leaves. But it's a beautiful image. Yeah, I like that. It makes sense. It's again a pretty stupid thing for the shepherd to do, but they did a lot of interesting things thousands of years ago.
Well, here's the thing. like most segments, I start off disagreeing with Jesus and then proving that I agree with him in the end. You did the opposite. You're now disagreeing with the shepherd, who in this story is Jesus.
No, I said I think it's great for us and an image for Jesus and us, but just a bad idea to do with the sheep. Like,
So
just eat the sheep. If the sheep's wandering off, just eat it.
Boy, you're not getting the metaphor at all. God is not going to eat you. We eat God.
I get the metaphor.
Well, good. So that's the whole thing. It's like, look, there is this idea that God is in control, but we have full capabilities to do our own things as well, right? If we continue to choose to say, nothing's my fault, it's all on God, he's going to be like, well, you're a dumb sheep, and maybe I'll make a leash for you. That's the moral of the story, I guess. But God is ultimately in control, but we have control over what we can control: our actions, how, not our emotions, but how we respond to our emotions. And I know that this has been a crazy week for a lot of people. So all what we can control is our response, and hopefully that response involves something with the shepherd. So that's our conversation for here for the first segment. When I come back, I'm going to be talking with a Catholic comedian who's been all over Sirius XM and has been a professional comedian for years. It's not John, and John got mad at me because he thinks that I don't want to interview with him, or that I have John on a leash and he's not allowed to interview. But I scheduled this interview for the time you said we were going to record, and you changed it. So it's your fault.
It's my fault.
Your fault. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back, and then John will be back in 20 minutes. As Catholics, we believe we are united to the communion of saints, the holy men and women eternally worshiping God in heaven. Saints are not fairy tale figures or cartoon caricatures of holiness, but real men and women who lived real lives with struggles, sinfulness, and sorrow, but also with resolve and deep faith for the love of God fully. There's a thin veil between this world and eternal life, and through that thin veil, we can learn about those who lived lives of heroic virtue and call upon them for support, guidance, inspiration, and encouragement as we strive to grow closer to Christ. Check out the next series in Ave Explores podcast, The Saints, where a host and my friend Katie Praisar-McGrady and a variety of great guests explore the role of saints in the life of the church and why they are important. We will look at how we can grow in friendship with the saints, who represent a variety of cultures, experiences, backgrounds, lifestyles, abilities, and races, and most especially reflect on how we too are called to be saints. I've mentioned so many times on the show before that saints are a big hole in my knowledge of Catholicism. I've been enjoying listening to this new series, and I hope that you guys too. So check out the Ave Explores podcast and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the new and exciting episodes. You can also sign up for all the free content at AveMariaPress.com or by following Ave Maria Press on social media. Ave Explores, everyday faith for everyday people. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and thank the Lord Jesus, we have dropped Jonathan Blevins off in timeout. Don't worry, he'll be back in like 20 minutes. But he always gets mad at me that I don't let him talk to the guests. But this time, we scheduled this, and John was going to be with us, David, but he had to reschedule. He's currently at Orange Theory working out, which is perfect for what we talked about in the rest of this show. But you have taken his spot, and I could not be more thankful. So David Studebaker is here, and this is one of those things that the reason you're on the show is strange. One, like from my end, I got an Instagram DM, and you were like, "Hey, I'm David, and I'm this comedian who lives who's converted to Catholicism, who lives out in California. I've been on Sirius XM and all this other stuff, a professional comedian, and I heard about you from this person, and I assumed it was my mutual. I assumed we had a mutual friend in Catholic comedian Aaron Weber, and then we got on the call today, and you were like, "No, it was this other person."
That is true. It is the great Luke LaCoy. The great Luke LaCoy. Although I'm sure Aaron contributed somehow in God's greater plan. I'm sure Aaron contributed in some way, but we haven't met.
Well, so yeah, you were telling me that it's your friend who's not even Catholic, and we're not even sure how he found me, but it's the reason you're on my show because of an Instagram DM I got at 2 a.m. I love this.
Right? No, it's amazing. It's how 21st century is that?
Right, exactly. So you have been doing this whole comedy thing. Like everybody that's listened to the show for a while knows I love stand-up comedy. I like to attempt comedy and then bring on comedians to show how I'm not as great at it as I think I am. But you've been doing this out in LA, and whenever you like introduced yourself to me, I was like, well, I got to go check out this YouTube videos for two reasons. One, I love stand-up comedy and I have to watch, and also no crazies allowed on the show. Like if you were just some insane person, because I mean, for real, David, like who Instagram DMs at 2 a.m. saying you'd like to come onto a Catholic podcast and radio show? Like, it's just a strange thing to do. So I was like, oh, let's figure this out. And I loved it. So here you are.
I slid in, as the kids say. I slid into the DMs.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, part of it is I have an 18-month-old son. So all my work that I do basically is from like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then with the time difference, you know, it was definitely not the business hours that I slid in.
But it's so funny because it is my business hours, because I too have children and
you
work
understand.
at night and that sort of thing. So the thing, whenever you were introducing yourself to me, I was like, one of the things that stuck out to me was like, you're like, hey, I'm Catholic. I converted at 18. And I was like, wait, what? Like, people don't convert at 18. Like, their parents might convert when, you know, parents are like 25 or 30. The kids are like 1 or 2. And then you're just like, oh, I'm Catholic. Or you like convert, you know, you go to like 18 is like going to college when you convert to like partying person, you know, like, and you're like, no, I converted to Catholicism at 18. So I really want to know what was going on.
Yeah, no, I kind of buck every trend. It would take a book really to explain the entire religious history of my family. It involves Protestant preachers who became atheists and quit, and my dad was in Hinduism in India for a long time. But personally, most of my youth, especially childhood, was in Buddhism. That was kind of the predominant religion. And then my family, when I was 10 or 11, my dad nearly died and we lost everything. And so that kind of started, they kind of came back to Christianity and then eventually to Catholicism. And it was like in the darkest period of our life that I still was resistant, but I was kind of, you know, I was finding myself feeling better when I would be, you know, go to a church or go to an adoration chapel or have that time. And then the funny thing that happened too, because so there's a cathedral in San Francisco. It's called St. Dominic's, and it's a Dominican. There's Dominican friars.
No way.
I know, who'd have thought? But it's this like stunning, gorgeous cathedral. It's one of the most beautiful churches in all of the West Coast. And so I walked in, I was like 11. I was like, oh my, like I just went from Buddhism where it's like, okay, sit on a pillow and watch your breath for an hour and stare at the wall. So like there's incense and wine and statues. And I feel like I'm in, you know, 15th century France. And so I was like, this is like Disney. This is like spiritual Disneyland to me. And so it was like the double whammy of, I didn't have any sort of negative connotations. I was kind of a clean slate. And it was such a source of comfort and joy. And so, I mean, like, I genuinely get excited to go to Mass. I find it fun. And I was fortunate to have, my parents are very, very, you know, so we grew up in San Francisco area. So they're very, you know, lovey-dovey, you know. I don't have any of that kind of association of like the parent that's like, you have to do this, and kind of that God association,
right?
Like that, you know, any sort of, you know, forcing or guilt or whatever, you know, that certain Catholics go through. There was none of that for me. So for me, I'm like, yeah, this is great. And not to say it wasn't a bumpy road. I had bumps in the road, but I was doubly weird because I converted to Catholicism at 18. And I started stand-up comedy at 18. I'm now 31, so it's been a long road. But like I did everything weird. It was yeah. So definitely journey.
You might think it's weird, but also like going into comedy in the situation you just shared with me seems very plausible to me.
Yeah, right. No, it's very true.
But also like it's interesting for me because like a lot of like most of the time when we hear converts, it's either from atheism, like we've heard that, you know, like Jen Fulwiler and, you know, kind of the big name, atheist to Catholic. Or I think even more prevalent is like some kind of Protestant non-denominational Christian to Catholic. So when it comes to Mass, a lot of people, like one of the struggles for converts is like, oh, this is a lot more boring. Like Mass is more boring than like Protestant worship services where there's, you know, good music and good preaching, which is rare in Catholic churches. And, you know, like they come here. But I've never heard a convert say Mass was exciting, but I get it because you were just on a pillow staring at a wall. Like it's just a very interesting perspective you have there.
Well, and I should say, not all Masses are exciting. There are like,
Right.
I'm human, you know, there are some where I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a long one. But especially the churches that I was introduced to initially. So I got that taste. Like I have a friend who's a cradle Catholic, and I took him to St. Dominic's one time, and he had only gone to a church where they had, you know, the plastic folding chairs, and it was just a blank room basically. And he went there, he's like, and the music was incredible. They have like basically a professional like Gregorian chant choir there. And he's like, man, if it was like this, I'd be going to Mass all the time. So there's that. And it's funny though, even for me, like with Protestant churches, because I went to some Protestant churches prior to becoming Catholic. And I see with a Protestant, like they're fun and I enjoy them, but I feel like they're like a dinner party where they don't serve dinner. So it's like, I've been invited here, there's nice chatting and people are saying great things and singing, but I'm like, where's the food? When was the meal going to be served? I feel like
more importantly, where's the alcohol?
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, it is definitely a different, a different zone. But again, I'm like a convert and a revert, which is if we really want to get into it, because I converted at 18 and then I went through kind of a tough period and I kind of floated away. I went to an Episcopal church. It's a very long story, but I had some issues with the church I was going to. It involved a comedy show. It got very, very weird. But then I did come back after that, and it's been years now since I've been back. But I kind of basically did the whole thing. I did the conversion and the reversion, and I checked all the boxes.
You just really wanted a book deal. Those are the only people that get book deals, is conversions and reversions in the Catholic Church. So you got both. You have your bestseller and then the follow-up book.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have to hit something though. I find it kind of interesting because now you have all these different things playing into your life. You have the coming from the Buddhism and then the Catholicism, where I'm just stuck on picturing you in a room on sitting on a sofa or on a pillow, and then I'm just imagining how things must have come full circle during this quarantine because there was no Mass in person anymore. So here you are as a Catholic sitting at home, probably on a pillow or a sofa, staring at the wall that has a television on it, streaming live Mass. So
right?
You're essentially doing the same thing at that point.
No, that is true. The other funny thing about COVID right now is I feel like there's a certain
I love comedians. The funny thing about COVID.
We are who we are. With certain Catholics, I feel like there's a certain segment of the Catholic population, and I love the Catholic population, but the one thing they're enjoying about COVID is because at least here, you're not allowed to exchange the peace. Oh, and I feel like there's certain Catholics where like, I come from a Protestant and, love you. So like for me, exchange the peace, I'm hugging and kissing and the whole thing. But sometimes like I'll go in even for a handshake and they'll be like, excuse me, do I know you? Back up. Don't look at me. All right. I don't know you. Get away. So I feel like there's some where they're like, yes. No more of this hugging stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny. Like I've gone back to Mass like in a church a few times here in the last month or two, and it is kind of fun. Like because the sign of peace is always kind of like intermission, right? Where it's just like everybody gets to take a break from being quiet and solemn and be like, "What's up?" And now it's like it's so funny. Like watching everyone who's like 70 and up just chunk the deuce all throughout church. Like, what's up? Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Yeah. And it's so funny because we think of that being like a young person's thing, like, what's up? But like they invented it. Like they were alive in the 70s. They started this whole peace thing.
No, that's so true. That's so true.
It is kind of funny too, because like the whole sign of peace thing, it all comes from the scripture about like if you have something between, like if you and I have something between us where we hate each other and we're sitting next to each other at Mass, Jesus is like, guys, y'all need to work it out before you come up to my altar. Yeah. And what's funny is like now people are using the sign of peace as the thing that is getting between people. They're like, how dare you breathe near me? And it's like, we made it worse. Just get rid of the sign of the peace.
No, it's so true. Yeah, we just blow by it now. Like in the LA Archdiocese, they don't even they don't even acknowledge it. Like they just blow by. We don't even try the peace signs anymore.
That's awesome.
I love it. And I will say, to all your listeners, This man is doing a great thing, because it really is important that we be able to laugh in a loving way about Catholicism. Because Jesus, I don't know if you've read the book Between Heaven and Mirth, but there's a great argument to be made that a lot of Jesus' sayings and parables, while they were meant to be serious, also would have been hilarious. Like the camel through the eye of a needle was like that would have brought the house down in Palestine at that time. So it's really like, it's great that, that you're doing this.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, like you said, you've listened to the show a few times, and you didn't get the memo. Complimenting me is illegal on the show.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't think it's an actual rule, but no one ever does. So I think it's a rule now.
I'm a trailblazer. And it should be a rule. And as we saw with my conversion, I zig when others zag. So, it should be a rule.
Well, good. I appreciate that. So I grew up in the church. I've literally been at a church multiple times a week since I was a small baby. So like, it's so funny. Like I look at the church and there's so many things funny about it. But like you kind of have this like insiders/outsiders perspective. So like, what are some of the things that you've seen as this person who was completely outside of the church, sitting on a sofa in your room, to like now you're in it, man? Like what are some of the things that you look at and be like, that's kind of funny?
Yeah, well, the exchange of the peace, as we talked about, that's always the most funny thing to me. I do love, personally, I love homilies. Now, a lot of Catholics don't. They'll find it boring. But to me, the homilies are always hilarious, because especially when a priest tries to tell a joke. That's my favorite thing in all of the Catholic Mass, is when they try to tell a joke, and especially when it's funny but it bombs. And that moment, there's been so many times in Mass where it's my parish is the largest in LA, in the LA Archdiocese. So there'll be like 1,500 people. They'll tell a joke. I'm the only one laughing. And there's like a comedian laugh that you do, where if you're in the back of the room and a comedian tells a joke, a fellow comedian tells a joke, it doesn't do it. There's a laugh, you do it, and it's kind of almost a cackle. It's like a ha, but like you make it known that like you thought that was funny. And so I will often do that, but then I'll realize like, oh, I'm not in a comedy club, I'm in a church. And so then I get like the side eye from people, but I'm like, it was funny. Come on, no one thought that was this guy's doing good material here. Come on, give him some love.
What's funny is like, what I really hope is that there's a priest here right now, and every time you try to talk about faith, they laugh. That would just be the perfect combination. But like, I do the same thing. And what's funny is like, like everybody always talks about like the church laughs, like you just can't stop laughing about something. And like, I'm the same way. Like if the priest says something funny, like I'm usually the only one laughing. And I think part of it is we might be some of the only people paying attention.
Yes.
But I also had this image, like just kind of like comparing your life to like, the homily. What I really think you should do, like your next 5-minute set should be like a parody of a 5-minute homily, where you go up there and everything is written down and you stare at the paper and just read it off the paper the whole time and like awkwardly reread another sentence. I think it would only work with Catholic audiences, and it would it would take a while to get a laugh, but then it would be hilarious.
It's very Kaufman-esque. I like it. That is something that is interesting, where like there's so many things where like if it's just a Catholic audience, I can do it and it works. It's so hard to do anything that's like inside baseball with Catholicism or even Christianity with comedy club audiences, especially because like usually if you're getting drunk on a Thursday night, like you're not really you're probably not always going to be that tuned up. But yeah, no, that is, I do a few things. I do weave Catholicism and religion in a little bit, but I tend to, my comedy is like, I call it adult clean. So like my stand-up, it's like, I can perform and can be kids there. It's not terrible, but I'm like, generally it's like an adult can come, they can enjoy it, or someone like 13 and older, basically like I'm a PG-13 movie, but it is so
if they can watch Shrek, they can watch you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like, but it is so funny threading that needle, because there are so many, even with TV, like I used to, when I started comedy, I used to be able to tell jokes about TV shows, because like almost everyone watched like early American Idol stuff or things like that. And now everyone goes to a different, church, or doesn't go, or watches a different show. There's so few things that are really shared. So most of what I do now just kind of has to be like making fun of myself, because like other than that, it's people don't even know, like, I don't know, who's Jerry Seinfeld. I don't know who that is. I don't
He's just an old man that talks to himself on stage.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end here. We've got just about a minute left. So you've got this book. We didn't even get into the book. We're gonna have you back on, talk more about the book. But in 30 seconds, tell me about the book. And then obviously people can go find you on YouTube. I love the videos. People need to go check it out.
Thank you.
How can people find the book and get connected with
Yeah, so the book's on Amazon. Basically, it's called Lone Star Lance, and essentially it's kind of everything we've been talking about, but if people were trying to kill me. So it's a comedy thriller that weaves in Catholicism. The main character is he's outside the church. He's a San Francisco playwright and yoga instructor who's forced to move in with his conservative Catholic in-laws in Dallas, Texas. And so it's kind of the worlds colliding, but it's kind of, because I've been an insider and an outsider of the church, I wanted to bring something to audiences that is funny for everyone, that someone outside the church can enjoy it and feel like they're being spoken for, and inside the church, and to show in these times where like everyone's so polarized and angry, that like in this there can be a family who disagrees on things, but they still love each other. They can disagree and coexist, and also fight bad guys. So if you enjoy comedy and mystery, and it's an easy read. So definitely, Amazon.com, and then my website, davidstudebaker.com, Studebaker like the car. And then same thing. My name is my handle on Instagram and TikTok. Actually, TikTok is a whole,
gross.
I was forced by my producer of my show, David's Arc, to be on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, Studebaker Comedy is on TikTok.
Well, I love it. I hope I get more 2 a.m. DMs from Catholic comedians, because this has been a pleasure. David, thanks so much. I appreciate you being here. Sorry,
can I say one last thing? Thing. In 10 seconds, if this is going on before November 14th, my brother has an organization that benefits foster youth. It's a faith-based organization, and it's on my YouTube channel. It's a fundraiser show that I'll be headlining. So if you want to see an hour-long set for me, raise money for them, go to my website. The info's there. Sorry for going long.
No, it's awesome, man. I appreciate it. God bless. Thank you for being here, guys. I will be right back. We'll let John back in the Zoom call. Don't go anywhere. We're in the chilly season, my friends, and that means we all need some new socks. And if you want socks that are going to keep you warm this winter and also make you look stylish as heck, you need new socks from Sock Religious. If you go to fortecatholic.com/socks, you'll be able to get 15% off your next order of great socks that have saints on them and some of our favorite stories from the scriptures. They're so much fun. I own like 4 pairs of them, something like that. They're great. So go to fortecatholic.com/socks to get yours today and 15% off with the code FORTE15. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I'm Taylor Schroll. Jonathan Bearded Blevins is welcomed back lovingly to the show after a brief hiatus last segment. So John, you're a fan of memes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the current memes is the like how it started and how it's going, right?
I love it. I actually haven't made one yet. I want to make one so bad. I haven't done it yet. I'm thinking of things. Anyway, yes, I love the meme.
Do you have a favorite one that you can like recall? Like what's your favorite, like how it started, how it's going thing?
Oh man. Well, okay, yeah. There was yeah, I'll just say it. My favorite one was a Detroit Lions one. And it was how it started, and it was like the historic franchise, like when we were good in the 50s when we won championships, and it was like 1957 Lions championship, but underneath it said 0 Super Bowls because there weren't Super Bowls yet.
Right.
So how it started, we were winning but still no Super Bowls, and how it's going, and at the time we were like 1-3. And I was like, yeah, but we are going to win it this year. Anyway, continue.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Both of our football teams are just doing swimmingly this year.
Listen, we're one game away from 500, okay?
Okay.
That's it. That's the statement.
Proud of you. So like for people who don't, like, that's a great example. Like for people who haven't seen it because you don't own the internet or something, it's like, like a lot of couples are doing it, like how it started. It's like their first date and how it's going. And now they're, married for 18 years and have 14 kids or whatever, like that. That's essentially the picture. And I saw one that perfectly encapsulated how I feel almost all the time, Jonathan.
Okay.
and it's Sisyphus from Greek mythology. Do you know anything about Sisyphus?
So only because beforehand you told me a little bit about what it's about. I've heard the story, but I love Greek mythology and I'm not super familiar with him.
Yeah, so he got punished for, something. Another god got mad at him, because that's how punishment in Greek mythology worked. And his punishment was that he had to push a rock up a hill for eternity. So he's this big old strong guy, and
there's a big hill.
Huge boulder, huge hill. He's pushing this rock up, and he would get all the way up to the top, and what would happen to the rock? Rolls all the way back to the ground, and he has to do it. So literally his eternity is pushing this rock up the hill. So the meme was how it started, and it's Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, and how it's going is Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. And it's how I feel about almost everything, almost all the time.
There's no progress, even though you're working hard.
Right. Working hard, like whether it's like, actual work, like my job, or like becoming a better Christian, or becoming a better husband or a father, or literally working out and pushing things up, heavy things. Like no matter what I do, not much changes.
Yeah, I hear that. I can feel that sometimes for sure.
So we've got all these angles. We've got the like physical angle. So like, like every time I get back, you and I have talked about working out, a few times over the last year here on the show. And like, there's always times where like, I'm just super lethargic. There'll be like 2 months where I'm stressed out, not doing anything. And then like, I get super into working out, and it lasts a few months, and inevitably I get hurt because my body is broken and everything stinks. And I'm Sisyphus pushing metal up or rock up a hill. And then I'll get hurt, which is what happened. So like at the beginning, like months ago, I lost 10 pounds, and then I gained 10 pounds from working out, like literally lost fat, gained muscle. And then right when everything's going swimmingly, I mess up my leg and I can't work out for 3.5 weeks because I'm walking with a limp. And I just feel like, and now I'm 5 pounds heavier, and I'm so upset.
Yeah, I feel for you though, because in a second when I rant about why I'm finally taking my health seriously, really probably for the first time since I was like 21, maybe earlier than that, maybe like 19. My reasons had nothing to do with injury. Like, what do you do? What are you supposed to do? I mean, they do say that 90% of your weight is what you eat. So I guess maybe you're crazy. You try to do some kind of sustainable diet, but if I can't imagine getting so badly hurt that I can't work out. Like I haven't even been able to use that excuse for 12 or 13 years.
Right. You're smarter than me, or it's just the fact that my whole body is, all my muscles are just scar tissue at this point.
Well, like you played much more physical sports than I did. I played basketball and soccer, so a lot of cardio stuff. I mean, obviously slide tackling is a thing, but yeah. You played more physically demanding as far as like strength sports than I did.
Ironically enough, the sport I got hurt the most in, oh, that's not true, but not the most, but the worst injuries came from the non-contact sport of track and field.
But there's a lot of movement there, right? There's a lot of like strength involved, and like you got to stretch well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So like I blew out my hamstrings. Like that's essentially what I hurt all the time. It's like my hamstrings are just a ticking time bomb where they're going to pull. Something's going to happen. Something's going to do a little minor tear just because I've done that so many times. And it's all like you're saying, old injuries from track and football and all that kind of stuff. So, but you, like I saw you today and I was like, you look really skinny. So either white is as slimming, you're wearing a white t-shirt. It's either as slimming as people say, or you actually have lost a lot of weight. So you don't feel like Sisyphus currently working out. So how's that going?
No, I don't. Well, let me just be fully transparent with you. We've talked about this on podcasts before. We've had Leo on before from, oh my gosh,
Libertas.
I was going to say the running guy because that's his Instagram account.
Yeah.
And he was a great motivation for me. Joel Stepanek, we've talked about him before. He is my literal best friend and number one inspiration when it comes to like developing healthy habits, not just physically, but spiritually as well. He's just a great dude, great friend. But finally it's different for me now because like I went to Arizona during COVID in the very beginning, just stayed at my parents' house and hung out with Joel quite a bit and was doing CrossFit with him every day. And it killed me. It absolutely killed me. And I was finally like in this 2-week habit of going. I was eating decently, but it didn't stick and I didn't have the right reasons for doing it. And I came back here, and then we started the Super Squares thing where I'm live at Thursday night for 5 hours, 12 hours on Sunday, and another 5 hours on Monday night. And I'm ordering Uber Eats, and I'm having beers, and just literally like, and then making excuses like, oh, I don't have to work out because this is what I have to do to support my family. I don't have time to work out. And I found myself just making all these excuses these last 2 months as to why I'm allowed to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, sleep in, go to bed late, all these things, right? And so then I have this great conversation with a priest friend of mine who's just ordained this past June. He comes over, blesses my house. We do confession. It was really beautiful. We got to do confession with my wife and I, not together, but we both got to go in our house, and then he did mass for our family. And it was the first mass I've been to in 6 months without a mask on, which was freeing and beautiful. And I just had this moment of prayer and mass where it was like, man, like regardless of how well I'm doing to provide for my family or allowing Jody to shoot, her dream is to stay home and it's happening, and how I really am being a better dad. Like I'm paying attention to my kids. I'm not on my phone as much, little things like that. Just I was living in like, look how good I am because I'm doing those little things. So let me just completely trash my body. It was just a horrible excuse. So I step on the scale, and I was 265, which is like 15 pounds heavier than I have ever been. And I was at like 240 like a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. So I put on like,
wow.
Yeah, I put on like
See,
almost 20 pounds.
I'm doing it right. I've been 265 for years.
Well, dude, you wouldn't believe, like, I mean, I know weight can fluctuate, like, so maybe it was just I ate a lot that day when I weighed myself, but I looked and saw 265, and I was like, I was embarrassed. I was like wildly embarrassed. And so in this moment in mass, I was just like, I have to start taking my physical life more seriously, because I've been preaching about how it's important. I know that when you establish healthy habits in your life, your prayer life is going to improve. And I keep talking about how, we're just in seasons. All these excuses as Catholics who make, it's just a bad season. It's a bad season. Like, no, it's been a bad 20 years for me.
My bad. Exactly. That's been my season. Since I turned 20, it's been a bad season.
Yeah. So 13 years. It's been a bad 13 years for me taking care of myself. And so I'm just over it. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, if I lived in Arizona, I would go work out with Joel every day. I proved that. I did that. I'm not going to go to CrossFit right now, which I really kind of wanted to do, because you have to wear a mask the whole time, and you got to, like, you're sharing a lot of equipment, and it just seems kind of like weird during COVID times. And I live in Illinois. But I heard of this Orange Theory thing, which is, it's a lot of cardio, and it's expensive. And I was like, if I sign up, I'm going to go. I'm going to use the app. I bought this heart rate monitor, and I'm going to start eating better. Like, I can't be eating. I was eating like fast food almost every day. And I was like hiding from it, because I was like, I wouldn't eat it for 3 or 4 days, and then I would eat it like for 3 meals in one day. And it's like, I'm not doing so bad. For 4 days, I wasn't eating fast food at all. Well, yeah. Then I ordered an entire large.
I haven't killed anybody in 4 days. Doing pretty good.
Right? Then I ordered, like, I think I did hit like rock bottom for me. I was streaming at Super Squares, and I ordered $45. Now Uber Eats is really expensive, so it's like 20 extra bucks was probably the delivery and everything. But I ordered $45 worth of Portillo's. I had a double cheeseburger, an Italian beef sandwich, a large cheese fry, onion rings. I hadn't eaten all day.
You're leading me into temptation. Like, I just want to order all that now.
Sorry. But that was it. That night was the night where I said, it was like 2 days after the mass.
It was your last supper.
It was. I was like, I'm done after this. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I went to Orange Theory the next day. And I've been going, and I'm going to keep going. And there's just no excuse, man. I got to stop. It's ready. I'm ready to go. I grocery shop today, but all the right stuff. And it's not just because I want to look better, although you and I were joking about that off screen. I really do think that, like, our bodies are temples. And for 13 years, I have not treated mine like one. And I need to, if I want to be around for my kids. I need to, if I want to stop this weight climb that I'm doing. And I do think that it will rapidly and drastically improve my prayer life. So that's my long rant. I'm sorry.
Good. No. I'm glad you shared. So, God says our bodies are a temple, and that can be true for all of you, but mine's still a cathedral and probably going to stay that way. I've just accepted that now. So I think the thing about the whole Sisyphus thing, right? So, like, I think for both of us, like, literally we've talked about this, and like, we're like multiple times we've said, this is going to be the time it changes. And both of us are here again saying this is going to be the time it changes, And so, like, it literally can feel like Sisyphus, where it's like,
Yep.
We're pushing the rock up and then it falls. You push the rock, you work out for 3 weeks, and then you get hurt in my case, or you work out for 3 weeks and then you order $45 on Uber Eats and you like kind of fall back down. It's like we have to keep pushing it back up. And I think a lot of times, like I look at that story and like, obviously it is punishment for that guy, but me looking at it like, and kind of seeing, I'm like, look, I think that's kind of what a lot of life is, where it's like, we're going to fall and we got to keep pushing the rock up. And I think a lot of things are going to feel repetitive. Like as a husband, as a father, as a parent, like as a Christian, all of these things, it's like, I have to go pray again. Like I've prayed every day for 17 years. I have to do it again, you know, like pushing the rock back up. I have to work out again. Like all I did was work out 8 hours a day for 10 years of my life. Does that count for nothing now? And the answer is no. So I got to push the rock back up again. Like parenting, I got to change a diaper again. You know, I gotta take the kids to school again. It's like, yes, a lot of life is pushing the rock back up over and over and over again. So I got a really interesting perspective on this whole Sisyphus thing from The Good Place. Have you watched Good Place? I think we talked about it before.
Yeah, I stopped watching. I think I have like a season or two to go, but I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really good. A lot of Catholics didn't like the last season. I loved it. I think it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I think it's super underrated. This is from the last season where Michael says something. It's not a spoiler or anything, but he says this line in regard, like they're talking about Sisyphus, and essentially his role, essentially his whole life purpose. He's older. It kind of gets into like he's older and it's time to move on, that sort of thing, right? And he's like, who am I when the rock is gone, in regards to the Sisyphus thing? And like that blew my mind, because it's like, I can sit here and complain about the Sisyphus stuff in my life. I got to go work out again. I got to go pray again. I got to go spend time with my kids again, or take care of my kids, or take them to school. I got to go, like I have to stop playing video games, spend time with my wife. And like, these are all things that I have thought that are good, bad, negative, kind of all across the board. Yeah. Right. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I could complain about the rock over and over and over again, but at the end of the day, like, this is my life and I love it. Like, who am I? I don't know who I am without pushing the rock up the hill, Yeah. And I just thought that was a really interesting insight from The Good Place. And it was good. So that's our show today, Jonathan. We did it.
Well, let's motivate each other, my friend, because I agree with you about the whole rock thing falling all the way down. What are we going to do? And for me, I'm going to take 10 steps forward. And if I take 2 steps back, that's okay. I don't need to take 10 steps back. That's what I'm going to try to focus on, brother.
Be careful. If you take a step back, you might get crushed by a rock. I'll be back next week. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks so much for listening to today's show. I hope that you enjoyed it, because we sure as heck enjoyed recording it. If you would like to support what Forte Catholic is doing and our ministry here, you can always go to fortecatholic.com/donate and leave a very generous donation, whether that's $1 or $1 million. It's all very generous, like the whole widow's mite story from the old Jesus. But also, if you liked what you heard today, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much. I'll be back next week. Bye.